And welcome to the Pride of Detroit podcast, First Bite edition. I am an out of focus Jeremy Reisman. There we go. I'm the managing editor slash editor in chief slash whatever you want to call me of prideofdetroit.com. You can find me at Detroit Online on Twitter. This is First Bite, where we have a very special guest to talk about the Detroit Lions in every possible way, and we have fully shifted to draft talk, so we have a very special draft guest. But before I get to him, let's introduce my co-host. Ryan Matthews is here at Ryan_POD, voguing for the screen.
Two podcasts in one day, two for the price of one. That's something like a baseball reference, yada, 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 Akil Badoo. Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good. And if you missed that podcast, we had a fantastic conversation with Lions running back Jamal Williams. You are not going to want to miss that. So if you're listening to these out of order, go back and listen to that one right after you're done with this one. But let's talk about the draft. Let's talk about our very special guest. You may remember him from his days at PFF, his days on this podcast several times. He was with us for the draft party that we had last year, but now he's the director of football operations and analytics at FTN Network. Brett Whitefield rejoins the podcast. Brett, it's been far too long.
It's been way too long, man. I miss you guys.
We missed you too, man. At least I'm speaking for myself. I shouldn't speak for Ryan. Let's get his opinion as well.
You've been missed.
Thank you.
So today we are going to do a heavy focus on the offensive prospects in this year's draft class, and Brett is one of the best experts on the draft out there. So let's just get started at the top of the draft here, because I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on what the Lions should do, what options you think are going to be there for the 7th overall pick, and who specifically you like. Now, I know even last year you were talking about the Lions drafting a quarterback with that 3rd overall pick. I have to imagine you're still feeling like the Lions should be in the market for a quarterback. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they took a quarterback.
Well, okay, so let's talk about some of the prospects that you think might still be there and what you like about them or their fit in Detroit.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's pretty clear that the top two guys, at least consensus top two guys, I don't know what y'all's opinion is, but Lawrence and Wilson will be gone with the first 2 picks. So then we've got Fields, Lance, and Jones would be the next 3. And I think there's a chance for sure one of them is there. I think that's the way it's kind of playing out. There's a pretty realistic scenario where 4 quarterbacks go right in a row, first 4 picks. Obviously, San Francisco's probably taking one. Who is kind of the tricky thing. There's a lot of the big heads, whether it's Adam Schefter, Daniel Jeremiah, have kind of speculated it's going to be Mac Jones, obviously. I think a lot of people think it should be Justin Fields. Regardless of all that, one of those 2 guys will probably be available for Detroit at 7. And, I mean, there's a lot to like about both of them. I think Fields, it'd be really hard for me to pass on Fields if he was there at 7. I could live with them passing on Mac Jones.
What do you like specifically about Fields' game? I'm just curious because he's become such a polarizing prospect. Some of it has been kind of messy noise of unsubstantiated rumors. Some people also had legitimate concerns. I do feel like the Justin Fields hype wasn't there until that great game he had against Clemson, and then it kind of went into overdrive. So what do you like about him?
Yeah, so there's definitely legitimate critiques of Justin Fields' game. We've kind of devolved to the point in draft Twitter where everyone's been sitting around too long just waiting for the draft to happen. And so suddenly we have sources that say he's got all these work ethic issues and stuff like that. I've got no sources like that. I'm not here to talk about that at all, but I do know that Justin, everything he does well is exactly what you're looking for at the NFL level. If you're a traits guy, he's got all of the traits, whether it's the big arm, the elite level accuracy, the ability to extend plays with his feet, play out of structure, all of that stuff he's very good at. And I think that'd be a great fit on any NFL team, let alone a rebuilding team like the Lions.
So in terms of like a hypothetical scenario, say that, those first 2 quarterbacks are Lawrence and Wilson, and then you got Mac Jones going 3. If the 2 guys there are at 7, Lance and Fields, do you think that there's a preference that you have there, Brett? I know it sounds like maybe you're leaning Fields, but for the Lions specifically, and as they kind of use Jared Goff as, a lot of people like to refer to him as like a bridge that, gaps from one or a bridge that gaps, from the now to the future. Like, do you have a preference of Lance or Fields in that perspective?
Yeah, early in the process, I was definitely hot on Lance. The more I watch of him, I cooled a little bit. I think one thing I've noticed with his tape is he doesn't really utilize that incredible arm talent as much as he should or could. So I'd like to see him, rip the ball a little bit more often. I think there's been a few analysts kind of coming around to that point relatively recently, but it's something I noticed a little while ago. So it's really a toss-up for me. I like Lance. I think he's a little bit more raw, but one thing I loved about what he did at North Dakota State was he really, really ran the offense well. And we hear a lot about Justin Fields getting through progressions. Well, one thing I know for sure is that Lance really did a good job of getting through his progressions. Now, the result wasn't always great, but you can see the brain working and at a super high level pre-snap and post-snap. And I think those are really, really good positive things that it's a really good foundation for him moving forward. So I kind of like to, I'd be fine with taking either of those guys. I think Fields is probably a little bit more ready to play right now, though. So that'd probably be where I would go.
Yeah, and obviously the Lions have a little wiggle room there because I do think they're probably going to give Goff at least 1 year to potentially win the job there.
Yeah.
But let's move over to wide receivers because obviously that's the or should I say pass catchers, because we are going to include someone else in there that isn't a wide receiver.
Okay.
So you look at the mock drafts that have been coming out in the past month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, however long they've been going. There's a scenario for all of the wide receivers being there for the Lions pick. There's scenarios now where 2 out of the top 3 or 4 pass catchers are gone. Sometimes maybe in 3. I guess first of all, what's your let's get your kind of rankings if you don't mind, and let's go ahead and throw Kyle Pitts in there. You assuming your top 4 are Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Smith. How would you rank those in preference? I guess in terms of their fit with the Lions too.
Yeah, so Smith actually isn't in my top 4.
Okay.
I have him graded out as a good, very good prospect, but he's not an elite tier prospect for me.
Okay.
So I would have it Pitts number 1, and then I have a really tight cluster of top 3 receivers between Chase, Rashad Bateman, and Jalen Waddle.
Interesting.
So those 3 guys, they all offer something very different, and I think I'd be happy with any of them. Obviously, if you just go by draft Twitter consensus, picking Bateman at 7 would probably seem ludicrous to a lot of people. So I do understand that. I'm very high on Bateman, so I'd be okay with it. I get that nobody else probably would be, but maybe a trade back scenario that would work out great if you could get a Bateman a little bit later. But Chase and Waddle and Pitts, they're all very elite. I would take Pitts first. I think he's the best non-quarterback in the draft. He's not just a tight end. He qualifies as pass catcher. He can play on the outside in the slot. He can play inline. Legitimate mismatch, God, and he can win against corners, safeties, linebackers. Doesn't really matter. So Pitts would be my preference. I would take Pitts before any quarterback at 7 as well.
Wow. Ryan, do your victory lap. Go for it.
I need a cigarette. I don't know. I'm feeling very good right now. Palms are sweating. Chest is feeling a little heavy.
Are you a Pitts guy?
I'm a big Pitts guy. We've kind of coined the phrase the pit stop here on the podcast for me specifically, because I was really in on Pitts from the beginning in terms of if the Lions are interested in getting a pass catcher, if people were okay with getting a wide receiver but totally writing Pitts off the board because of his position, I thought people were telling on themselves. I thought people were saying, you have not watched Kyle Pitts if you think that he's just a tight end.
That's 100% true.
Yeah, for all the reasons that you kind of just listed. So, but I agree with you in the sense that I think if the Lions want to take Pitts, if they want to take Chase, if they want to take Waddle, in recent times on my Twitter timeline, like I've seen people just blowing up about Rashad Bateman, and he's been one of the risers that I think has really caught people's attention in terms of draft Twitter. So 7 might be something that obviously catches Lions fans completely out of sorts. But I think the pause that I have with Waddle, and I've seen some things on Twitter today about the ankle injury and everything kind of progressing with that. Do you have any concerns in terms of durability with Waddle in comparison to some of those other guys?
No, I don't. The ankle thing, I don't know how his medical recheck went or I didn't see anything today about that, so I can't comment specifically on that. But no, I mean he's built pretty well for his size. I think anytime you're drafting a guy that's got that athletic profile, you're always going to be dealing with hamstring injuries and sometimes groin. I mean, even look at Tyreek Hill, the guy everyone's comping him to. Tyreek's always got a sore hammy or something. Deshaun Jackson back in the day always got a sore hammy or something. It's unfortunately it's the nature of the beast when you're going for that level of speed, because I don't know that we were intended to run that fast.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, well, let's talk about the two kind of controversial things you said in there. One being Rashad Bateman being a top 4 guy, and Devontae Smith not being a top 4 guy. Let's start with Bateman because, like Ryan said, I think there's a certain amount of hype really kind of reaching Lions fans in the past week or two. So what do you like about his game as a potential 7th overall pick?
Yeah, so when I go through the prospects, I have a numeric scoring system, and I have basically 5 major buckets. I won't go through all of them, but it's, production, athleticism, and then tape score is the big one. And within each bucket, I've got all of these different parameters in which I grade the prospect on. Sometimes with analytical or athletic profile, it's more just straight numbers. But with the film score, you're actually watching the film, breaking it down, and grading it. And one of the reasons Bateman scores the highest for me, I think, is because he does everything well. There's no particular bucket he scores low in. So it's really driving his score through the roof because of that. And there's really nothing he can't do, whether it's, he can be your true possession type receiver. He can play X. He's got an incredible catch radius, really good route runner, and he's phenomenal after the catch for a guy who plays that possession type role. All those things make him, I think he profiles as a true number 1 receiver at the next level, which in this class, which is very heavy on slot only type receivers, I think it's incredibly valuable.
And certainly a huge need for the Lions, considering they don't have a number 1 right now, and really not an established number 2 either, since everyone else is on 1-year deals and they have their own kind of red flags. But let's move to Devontae Smith now. Is it just the size? Is that the main concern? Is that it's such a rare kind of build that we don't really see in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit size. There's a few like analytical red flags, whether it was late breakout, he's a senior. A lot of senior receivers drafted in the first round haven't worked out. All that's whatever. It doesn't necessarily bother me too bad. They are little dings in his overall score, which drops him a little bit for me. But ultimately, I think when you put on the tape, you can see some of those size issues come to fruition when he lined up at X and was able to get pressed. It's not very often you see it, but it did happen. And in the NFL, only gets tougher. And then the biggest thing for me is Alabama just did a great job of scheming him to get him open. I think he is a good route runner. I think he's the way he's portrayed on Twitter, I don't think he's quite that good of a route runner. And so I just think he smashed on like these over routes, and they would scheme him open using, all these different types of clear out patterns and pass concepts. He had a lot of production on screens as well. So I do think he's a really good prospect. I just don't think he's in the tier with those other guys I mentioned.
First round talent?
Yeah, for sure. He grades as a first round player for me. I do think for the Lions specifically, he does fit what they're probably going to want to do. I don't really know what offense they're going to run yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be something similar to what Lynn did last year with the Chargers.
Yeah.
So if you're going to tell me we're going to draft Devontae Smith and we're going to play him in like a Keenan Allen type role and try to get him in space over the middle of the field, I love that idea. And if you're going to use him correctly, that would be the way to do it, I think.
And I think we've seen that kind of recently in terms of mock drafts. We've seen a lot of trading back and the Lions getting Devonta Smith at 15 or getting him
totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Totally fine with that. Yeah.
The last question I have about the wide receivers, Brett, is, with the Lions, as Jeremy already mentioned, Tyrell Williams on a 1-year deal, Brashad Perryman on a 1-year deal. It seems like if the Lions draft a receiver, they're going to kind of expect him to be ready right out of the box, right from the jump.
Yeah.
Of those 4 guys, I mean, which one do you think is most NFL ready right from the start? Because I think the narrative with wide receivers for so long was that there's a learning curve in the NFL, and it takes a while for receivers. But I mean, if anything, last year's draft class completely smashed that. We saw, CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. So, like, what receiver of those 4 is really most NFL ready for production?
Yeah, here's the thing, too, about the guys you just mentioned. They came into situations, Justin Jefferson with Adam Thielen already there established.
Mm-hmm.
the other one, CeeDee Lamb with Gallup and Amari Cooper already established. So I actually was just talking about this with a good friend of mine, John Costco, who is at PFF. We were talking about how ideally when you draft a receiver that high, especially if you're going to kind of try to develop them into your number one and your 140 target kind of guy, you'd love them to come into a situation where they're not the number one, because all coverage is going to basically be designed to stop that guy.
Right.
So that is worrisome. I do like that the Lions played that Moneyball approach in free agency and didn't just add one middling talent. They actually just threw a bunch of darts at guys with very specific skill sets. I think that could help. So to answer your question, though, I think Jamar Chase and Rashad Bateman are probably best equipped to step in right away and be a true number one, and be productive early on in their career for sure.
All right, last position on the offense that I want to talk about, that's an option there at 7 is obviously the offensive tackles there. Couple of them that are options: Penei Sewell out of Oregon, and obviously Rashawn Slater. What are your overall opinions? I've heard varying opinions on who's one, who's number 2. Are those your top 2 guys? And if so, what's the order?
Yeah, those are my top 2 guys. There's not a big of a gap between the two as you might think. I've also talked to a lot of league people who think that's actually a growing consensus, where there's some teams that might even have Slater number 1, and if they don't, the gap really isn't as large as you'd have believed a couple weeks ago. I do think Sewell is the better prospect, especially if you're looking just for a tackle. I think the one thing Slater brings to the table that's really intriguing and will be intriguing for a lot of teams is he's versatile, can play left tackle, right tackle, can kick inside to guard. And that allows teams to get their best 5 offensive linemen on the field. I think that's a growing theme in the NFL that teams are going for. For me, though, in the line situation, we've kind of seen them try that with a couple, Tyrell Crosby, Vaitai, these guys that don't have really a set position and they end up getting a little bit lost. I think I'd rather just plug the hole and know I'm getting a tackle in Sewell, and he's a phenomenal prospect. They both are truly phenomenal prospects, but Sewell he's probably the best tackle prospect we've had in a few years for sure. So I'd love just to be able to grab him and plug him in. That's a guy I'm okay with at 7 for sure.
I'm going to butcher the quote a little bit, but I saw this earlier on Twitter, and this is something that was a little bit of a concern of mine with Sewell, is that he's such a natural left tackle prospect. It was Josh Sitton who said something like, if you try to play an offensive lineman out of position, it's like trying to wipe your butt with your opposite hand. So do you have any concern about Sewell making the transition from the left side to the right side?
Of course I do, which is why he's not really a target for me. It's I'm okay with it, but I'm not like actively like, hey, they should draft Sewell. It's interesting too, because you brought up Sitton. There's a bunch of offensive line contingency on Twitter who says the opposite, where, hey, if you can play, you can play straight up. I think Mitchell Schwartz and his brother are probably 2 that advocate for that. Like, yeah, it is difficult, but elite level talent is elite level talent. So I doubt at this point too they'd move Decker, right. But that would be the other possible option there.
And just to kind of cap it off with Slater, short arms is kind of like the big thing that people have been saying about him, and he'll have to play guard. Do you think he can stick at the right tackle position in the NFL?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, his arms aren't that short. He is still within the threshold. He's at the very bottom of it, but he's still within that 33-inch range. But his athleticism is just insane, his footwork is just incredible, and I think he'll be able to mirror, and I don't think he'll have a problem. You don't really see the length become an issue on tape, which that's the first. Anytime you have like a criticism like that, especially with whether it's Devontae Smith's body weight or Slater's arm length, it's like, okay, cool. Can we see that as an issue on tape? And I don't really see it.
With Slater, is it really just like that anchoring ability? Brett, I've seen that as a concern for him in terms of, but I mean, like you've said, his footwork, his athleticism. That's why I think a lot of people see him naturally transitioning and playing guard, because he has all of that. He has that in his toolbox. So, like, is that the main concern? Like bull rushes and things like that?
Yep. Yeah, bull rush, speed to power, gave him a little bit of problems. I think he's kind of wired. He wants to play aggressive. He wants to move those feet and get after it. He's nasty. I really love that in offensive lineman. I think he can learn to anchor probably fine. It's just something he had a little bit of trouble with.
So it sounds like you have a lot of options you'd at least be okay with in the first round.
Yeah.
Is there a hierarchy overall of just like, if this, I mean, it sounds like probably Kyle Pitts is your dream pick at this point.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts. I mean, Pitts, Chase, and Waddle. I think that's my preferred route. I do love Fields and Lance, but the Lions of what they did with the Stafford trade is they've bankrolled some assets for next year. I think they're in a really good spot where they can start to lay a nice foundation and then get the quarterback in play. If Goff doesn't work out, I'm higher on Goff than most of Detroit fan base Twitter people too. I don't think the step down from Stafford to Goff is huge. Goff he's played some tremendous football in the NFL already. He's only 26 years old, so I have no problem giving him a year to prove it. With the pass catching group they have right now, it's going to be pretty hard for him to prove it. But I mean, shoot, if they had one of those guys, it definitely gets a heck of a lot easier. So I think that's my preferred route. One of those 3 pass catchers. They should have a shot at one of those 3 guys, right? I mean, I don't see a scenario where all 3 of them are off the board. So that would be my preferred route. And then Fields would probably be my backup plan there. And then a trade back is obviously everyone's probably number 1 preference. Even if just to 9, pick up a 2nd round pick to move to 9 or something. So the Broncos can get one of those quarterbacks. I think that would be ideal. Still grab a pass catcher and then get another guy in the 2nd round.
And just so it gets to all of our listeners, Rashawn Slater at 7 isn't anything crazy.
No, not at all.
Well, Brett, you're a crowd pleaser right now because you got me with the trade down talk, you got Ryan with the Kyle Pitts talk, and then there's the Slater fans in our chat as well. So good stuff. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get deeper in the draft. We're going to move past the first round. We're going to talk about some second day guys, some third day guys at some positions of need. Again, talking offense with Brett Whitefield from FTN Network. We'll be right back.
Are we allowed to talk during this time?
Oh, yeah.
Now you can talk. So we usually just kind of have a relaxed 5 minutes here with our live audience. That's just like a break, a commercial break for the recorded podcast part. Chad, if you have any questions for Brett, we can do a little quick chat here. Robo asks, what's the gap of Darisaw to Slater?
Darisaw's a good prospect. I don't have him in that elite tier though. My big issue with Darisaw, he's played in that wonky Virginia Tech offense, and he just hardly took any true pass sets.
Yeah.
The same criticism slightly applies to Sewell. The difference is when we did see Sewell in those true dropback scenarios, he was phenomenal. Where I don't think we can say the same thing about Darisaw. He had multiple games where he actually didn't have to pass protect more than 5 or 6 times in a game. I mean, it's crazy. On more than like a 3-step drop.
Also,
yeah, I mean, he's still a good.
Also, someone named Alex_Reno says, "Tell Brett I said he's cute."
Oh, Alex, I see.
I don't know if he's still here, but that was early in the chat.
This seems like a chance for you to maybe plug some of your shiz, Brett. But CJ Craig 78 says, "Does he have a big board that we can view anywhere online?"
A big board. I can probably work on that, but at ftnfantasy.com, I've written a bunch of these wide receivers up, so you can find a bunch of articles. I'll post the link maybe tomorrow to all the different receiver profiles I've written. And then we've got a ton of draft content there in general. Not all of it is from me, but all of our guys are awesome. So I think you'd really enjoy a lot of it.
Yeah, Jeremy just dropped the link in the chat. So
cool. Thank you.
No problem. And yeah, at the end, we'll have you just kind of talk about everything that goes on in FTN. So it's FTN Network, right? 2 back-to-back ends there.
Yeah, Network is the mother company, but we've got multiple sites: FTN Data, Fantasy Daily.
Got it.
.coms, yeah, but they're all connected to the same mothership. So.
Does FTN stand for something?
Yeah, fade the noise. Actually, it's a betting term. One of our founders, Brad Evans, he's gone by the name Noisy Huevos is his Twitter handle.
Wow.
So he's kind of embraced fade the noise as his thing. So we adopt that as our moniker. I'm actually wearing an FTN shirt right now.
Love that. Oh yeah.
Ryan, do you know what the term fade the noise means?
No, but I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, well, so there's in betting, there's a lot of noise. a lot of static, especially when you're looking at data and analytics. And so it's just fade out all the noise and make solid plays.
Yeah. I love that. That's called my gut.
Yeah.
Brett, I have a question for you real quick.
Please.
Okay.
Why does everybody want to make Julian Edelman a Hall of Famer? Because it's driving me absolutely nuts.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, we live in a world where you can't no one can play the middle card. It's like either you're one extreme or the complete other. And I'm like, I'm a big Patriots fan. I'm like, guys, I mean, listen, the guy's not a Hall of Famer. I'm sorry. I mean, he's awesome. He's great, but the career window wasn't really long enough. I mean, he was so good in some of those Super Bowl runs. That's where
he's
people
a
get
gamer,
enamored.
right?
Yeah. They think that deserves to get him in. I think they're too lenient sometimes on the Hall of Fame. So I'd like to see that get a little tight. Like if Eli Manning makes it, I'm gonna drop dead probably.
I mean, the thing is, he will eventually. I ask this, and I fear what you just said might be your answer, but Calvin Johnson first ballot.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, phew. Okay,
absolutely.
We're still friends.
Yeah, my criteria for Hall of Fame has nothing to do with stats. It's when you were at your peak. Did you change the game in any way, or were you so feared that defenses absolutely changed, or offenses for that matter, absolutely changed what they did to get past you? And they totally did with Calvin. He changed the game. He was the best of a generation. That makes him a Hall of Famer. I don't need like a 12-year sample of incredible awesomeness to be a Hall of Famer.
Amen, man.
Longer than like a few years is good. So,
by the way, hey, I totally missed Alex Reno subscribed for 12 months. He's been here a full year now. Appreciate that, buddy. I mean,
wow, thanks for doing the bare minimum.
We've been streaming for 2.5, so I mean, almost 50%.
Yeah.
Wait, is this Twitch subscriptions?
Yeah.
Tell him to gift me a sub.
Do you have an account?
Twitch? Yeah, I just started one actually.
Did you really? What is it? I can shout it out if you're gonna start recording too.
I think. Oh, I haven't gone that far. I just watch a couple of different streamers on there.
Oh, okay, well that's fine too.
But it's just Brett Whitefield. I think is my name on there. Yeah, whatever.
I'm gonna see if this works anyways. Shout out Brett Whitefield. Let me see if that's actually how will I even be able to tell if that's actually your account? There is an account.
I don't know because I think I still have an egg face or whatever is on Twitch. Default profile. Yeah.
And then delusional Detroit.
Are you guys part of Detroit?
Yes, sir.
I just followed you, Brett.
Nice.
If this is you.
Thank you to Delusional Detroit Lions fan on YouTube for the $1.99. There's Brett Whitefield with the follow.
There we go.
He says, appreciate the insight, gentlemen. Thank you for the support. Appreciate that. Here's an interesting question from John Whitaker. He says, what would Stafford need to be a Hall of Famer? I've been asked this question several times. I have my answer, but I'm curious.
Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see the guy win,
Yeah.
At least once.
I think
quarterbacks are on a whole nother sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just my thing that I go to is he needs to have at least 2 seasons where he's in the MVP race at the end of the season, because he currently has 0.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, the criteria for quarterbacks should be tough too, but
right.
It's when you play in the era of like Brady and Rodgers and Manning, it's hard though because those guys are just obviously phenomenal.
Yeah. Ryan, did you just try to gift a sub to Brett and fail?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm just shooting shots right now.
You can literally click on his name or, Brett, if you were to type something in chat, I think it'd be easier. But I appreciate the 3 gifted subs just throwing darts.
I don't know. Let's just throw another one, see if we get
Yo, Mrs. Ruby with the grade of 58. How's it going, Ruvies? I hope everyone's doing good there. I hope Mrs. Ruby's doing well. I know she was not feeling herself earlier in the day. I hope her stream went well. I don't know what y'all did over there, but appreciate you coming in. And you found us during a break where I can acknowledge you and say how awesome the Mrs. Ruby community is. If you don't, there it is. Ryan gifts the sub to Brett Whitefield. By the way, Ryan, that's 50 gifted subs total.
Dang.
Yeah,
How much does the sub cost on your channel?
It's
$5.99.
It's $4.99 to sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to any Twitch account, one per month for free, if you link the accounts.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I hope everyone over at Mrs. Ruby's stream is doing well, including Mrs. Ruby. If you haven't visited Mrs. Ruby, who's a big friend of ours, and I'm going to give her a little shout out right here. She does a cooking stream, and she loves Detroit style pizza. She's got an amazing family, an amazing community. They do a bunch of charitable events over there, and I believe this month is Food and Drink Month at Twitch. So please give her all the support you can. She streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I think 5:30 is the time. So if that time is free, if you're hungry and you want to see some good food making with a great personality, check out Mrs. Ruby's stream.
Hannah Luzu says he talks sports ball and he's got a horrible mustache.
That does sound like exactly what Mrs. Ruby probably said right before she rated me. She is not a fan of the mustache, but Twitch chat will fight her on that.
Oh man, I'm excited to talk about day 2 stuff because let's just say, Brett, I got a mock draft coming out sometime at the end of this week, and I saw one of your tweets and I was like, it's gonna give it. I don't know if it'll give me Kyle Pitts level excitement, but it's gonna keep it going.
Just keep your clothes on. That's all I ask.
I'm trying to think of what one of my tweets would have done that, but.
You're ready. Don't worry.
Before we get back to it, thank you, Paper City Gamer, who I know came from Mrs. Ruby's chat with the 111 pits. Says go Patriots. So there you go, Brett, another Patriots fan in the chat. And then AMDG Alex gave 86 bits. Says which lines well on their eventual journey to be champions. I hope so.
Quick question before we get into it, Brett, about your New England Patriots. Are you a fan of them moving up from 15 to get a quarterback if they can?
Yeah, especially after what they just did in free agency.
Yeah.
They've kind of obfuscated a rebuild, which I think after last year, everyone's like, oh, Bill's going to blow it up. And then he's like, psych, just going on a spending spree. And so they're definitely, it seems like they're going for it. And, I think Cam played better than perception last year.
Mm-hmm.
But getting a young guy to really develop, I think will be great, especially if it's Fields or Lance, because there's some overlapping traits there.
Yeah.
Skill sets.
For sure.
So I could be so.
Yeah, I see a lot of people call Justin Fields like a smaller Cam Newton.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, yeah. He's Field isn't as violent of a runner as Newton is, but yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, Newton straight up got lined up to run the football. Like,
yeah, QB power and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, Fields is probably more accurate right now than Newton has ever been too, which is pretty cool.
That's the biggest knock that people had on Cam, right?
Yeah.
Robo, we'll discuss safeties next week. We're just going to stick to offense this time around just so we can kind of segment the discussion here. But we will talk all about the safety position among other positions next week with another special guest who I am in the midst of confirming. So one more question, I guess, before we go. Style asks, do you think there's any discussion in the Lions about trading up for a guy like Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase?
Oh, I would hope not. I mean, I'm firm on you don't trade up for non-quarterbacks. You just don't do it.
Yeah, especially in the midst of a rebuild, right? Like, if one of those top three of yours is almost guaranteed to be there when the Lions are on the clock, if they're close enough in your own rankings, I don't think it makes sense to go up and get one.
Yes, correct.
All right, you guys ready to get back into it? All right,
let's do it.
Let me hit the on-air button that I forgot to use in segment 1. And we are back. First bite here, talking the 2021 NFL Draft prospects on offense with Brett Whitefield from I almost said PFF.
Whoa.
Not anymore. FTN Network over there, the Director of Football Operations and Analytics. Let's move past that first round and now talk about day 2, because the Lions have 3 day 2 picks. That's really where Brad Holmes has made a lot of his name be known over there with the Rams. So if the Lions obviously have to hit on that 7th overall pick, but in order to really do a rebuild, they need to hit on a lot more, including day 2 and maybe even some day 3 picks. So Ryan, I know you're eager to talk about some of these day 2 picks. So where should we start? What position do you want to start at?
Well, I want to save that for a second. Let's get something out of the way right now. If there isn't a guy, like we talked about those top 5 quarterbacks, right? And obviously Lawrence and Wilson, there's no chance the Lions are going to have an opportunity to get either of those guys. Do you think that the Lions should take a chance on any guy, whether it's Davis Mills or it's Kellen Mond? Do you think it's worth the Lions investing in a day 2 or a day 3 pick in a quarterback?
I think the only one I'm interested in is Kellen Mond.
Okay.
He might finish my scoring with a first round grade.
Oh wow. Okay.
So like a late first, yeah.
What do you like so much about him?
If you're a toolsy kind of guy, like if you fall in love with the Fields and the Lances of the world, I mean, he's right up your alley there. Even some Zach Wilson to his game, but he's got the huge arm. He makes those just jaw-dropping throws. He's capable of making them, I should say. The only real knock to his game is just inconsistency throw to throw from an accuracy standpoint. I mean, there's times he'll go through stretches where he's just on the money, and then he'll just have complete lapses in accuracy. But for the most part, I mean, if you're a toolsy guy and you want a running quarterback, out of structure playmaker, big arm guy, I mean, why not throw a dart at a guy like Mond?
Fair enough. Let's just kind of go down the position chart here and go back to wide receivers here, because you mentioned it earlier. It's a deep class, but a lot of them are of that speedy slot variety. Let's talk 41. Pick 41. There obviously going to be some options there. Are there some guys that you see as specific fits for the Lions? I mean, obviously the Lions have been seeking out speedy guys in free agency. You have to imagine that's going to continue into the draft.
Yeah, the nice thing about that Moneyball approach they took in free agency to wide receiver is they have an open I mean, they can draft whatever they want at receiver. Yeah. If they find a slot-only type that works for them, that's awesome. They can draft him and not worry about where he's going to play or getting him on the field. Doesn't matter. If he's an X receiver, they can get him on the field. It doesn't really matter. So I love that. So basically, I mean, depending on really what Lynn is going to do, I don't know if he's making any alterations going back to a little bit more of what he did in Buffalo, or if he's going strictly Chargers. But, I mean, there's a ton of guys I like on day 2. Elijah Moore being one of them. If you want someone who's got a similar skill set to Jalen Waddle or Rondale Moore, he's got that top end speed. He destroys angles in after the catch. He's phenomenal after the catch. You can manufacture touches with him too, whether it's at running back or screen passes. He kind of does it all from that perspective. He's like the slot version of Rashad Bateman to me, actually. So, yeah, he's a guy like Diami Brown's another one. They're going for deep threat only. I shouldn't say only, but if they want a bona fide deep threat to get Goff back on track with the deep ball, I think he's the guy to do it. I think he might be the best deep receiver in this draft, actually. Wow. Which is saying a lot because Jamar Chase is in this draft.
Well, Ryan made a cha-ching kind of gesture there, so I'm guessing that's who you want to talk about a little more.
Yeah, I'll give this one as a freebie away on the podcast before my mock draft drops. But I have the Lions slotted to take Diami Brown at 41 because I think, there's the top of the wide receiver class, right? And then once you slide in, you mentioned Elijah Moore's name already, Rondale Moore. I think maybe Elijah Moore might be a little bit pricier than pick 41, but I was sitting there in my mock draft and I'm going, all right, Rondale Moore or Diami Brown. And I just talked myself into Diami Brown from, reading, so many profiles about him, watching a little bit of tape on him. It seems like the knock on Rondale Moore is just he hasn't been durable enough. And that's just one of the biggest things for me is I always preach the greatest ability is availability. And Rondale Moore was great as a freshman. He, took on Ohio State by himself and came out on top. But De'Ami Brown, there was something about, just back-to-back seasons of over 20 yards per reception. That's a guy who just gets down the field and is just, throwing haymakers. So can you elaborate a little bit more on what you like about De'Ami Brown and how he kind of projects in the NFL?
Yeah, so the ADOT obviously is super attractive. He made a living catching downfield passes in college from a very good quarterback in Sam Howell, who throws a beautiful deep ball. I think Jared Goff also throws a beautiful deep ball. But one of the things that I think De'Ami Brown is so good at is he's got a bunch of really unique tools in his toolbox for how he creates separation downfield. He's got a little nuances to the game. He almost looks like an NFL vet in the way he runs some of those deep routes, whether it's a really sophisticated release package or some of the ways he sets up double moves. He's just phenomenal at creating separation, whether it's early in the route or late in the route. He's just great at it. My comp for him actually is Marvin Jones Jr., who obviously has played here for many years. I think De'Ami Brown's a little bit more yoked up version of Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Do you have any kind of diamonds in the rough, guys that maybe aren't getting enough props on draft Twitter, or maybe guys that you see in the 4th or 5th round? A lot of people are fascinated by Anthony Schwartz, a guy with incredible speed, but maybe not as polished. There's a whole bunch. I think everyone has their favorite day 3 guy because this draft is so deep with athletic guys. Is there someone that you think maybe stands above the rest, that they're maybe not something more than just speed?
Yeah, you hit on one of them right there, Anthony Schwartz. If you're a guy who's into Rondale Moore and what he brings to the table and that manufactured touch skill set and just getting that speed in space, Schwartz is a very similar player at it, and it's going to cost you a lot less in draft capital. I think, anyways. I don't know. Anytime a guy runs in the 4.2s, you have to be concerned he's going to go higher than you imagine. But I do think he's probably an early day 3 guy, and I would really like Schwartz in a situation where they had already addressed wide receiver earlier in the draft, maybe with a bigger body guy, whether that would be Bateman or even a Terrence Marshall Jr. or something like that, and then grabbing a guy in Schwartz who can play a little slot. You can get him some of those manufactured touches and try to build some offense that way. So he's one. There's a handful of slot-only types, whether it's a Jalen Darden, another speedster, really crispy route runner. Might have some hands issues, but I do like most of what I see on tape from him, other than some of the way he strikes the ball with his hands. Not great. But Cade Johnson, another one, speedy slot receiver from South Dakota State. Amari Rodgers, totally different type of player. He's like a running back playing slot where he's yards after catch monster. He's a pretty sophisticated route runner too. He can really do damage in the short and intermediate parts of the field. Doesn't really have that vertical element to his game as some of these other guys do, but that's not necessarily required from the slot in the NFL.
My one other name, Brett, that I want you to maybe talk about, and I've seen him kind of all over the draft boards. Brugler's got him all the way down at wide receiver 20. PFF's a little bit more. PFF's a little higher on him. I like Josh Palmer out of Tennessee.
I knew you were going as soon as you said that. Yeah. Palmer's another great option on, especially if he's there on day 3. He's a big frame guy, really developed skill set actually for how unproductive he was in college. Just played in a really bad program, just egregious quarterback play. It's hard to fault the guy for the lack of production. But when you put on the tape and you do see him in action, really, really skilled dude. So it's a good call. Another guy I'd be definitely elated with on day 3.
Some of the things I read about him, he's going up against SEC competition. You mentioned the really bad quarterback play. He went toe-to-toe with Patrick Surtain, maybe a lot of people's CB1 in this draft class, and had a great showing against him. He even caught a touchdown. Tyson Campbell, another cornerback that a lot of people are high on in terms of having traits that can be coached up. I like Josh Palmer just from the stat of seeing how bad his quarterback play. It was something like 37% of his passes were uncatchable passes that were thrown his way. So it's one of those things where you start to get into some of these day 2, day 3 guys, and it's all about projection, right? It's all about
totally.
Maybe you didn't get the tape, or maybe even because of these specific constraints that we're under, where there isn't any 2020 tape on some of these guys.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I look for too, anytime I'm trying to nail down some day 3 guys, it's like either they got to be super diamond in the rough, small school, good athletic profile type guys, or I'm just looking for a very specific skill set that I know you can bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other guys like that too. Like I think of a Jonathan Adams. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. Small school guy. He's like 6'6", 230, and just makes just freaky acrobatic catches all over the field. He's a guy I'm pretty sure is going to go day 3. I guess you can never say for sure. But man, it's hard not to like a guy like that, especially if you're looking for ways to make it easy on your offense. He could be a good red zone weapon, like right off the bat. Might not ever develop into much more, but if you're looking for a contested catch situation guy and someone who can produce in the red zone, he might be a good day 3 option to kind of aid your offense in the red zone there.
Before we move on to the big uglies and on the offensive line, I do want to talk about one guy, only to please our live audience, because he's kind of become a special name of sorts in our mock draft Thursdays. That's Racey McMath. Do you have any opinions on Racey McMath?
Haven't watched.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mostly a joke question anyway.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the offensive line, specifically offensive tackle, because if the Lions don't address it in day 1, it's definitely up there in their biggest needs. And also a position that I would say is available for some talent there, specifically in day 2. So talk to me about some of the day 2 talent that you like at offensive tackle.
Yeah, and what's so crazy about both tackle and wide receiver is it's both position groups are so deep, obviously. The reason I prefer that pass catching group in the first round, I think that tier, there's a bigger drop off from that tier of pass catcher to the next tier is from the offensive tackles to the second and third tier of offensive tackles. So I don't think you're going to find as high of a quality receiver in the second round as you will in the first, where I do think there's a chance you could hit on a really good offensive tackle in the second round. One guy that sticks out to me that I think would really fit what they're trying to do right now is Taven Jenkins from Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Now, there's a good chance he's a first-round guy, but if he does happen to slide into the second round, I mean, I would be all over that. Slides right in at right tackle right away. There's no position change needed with him. He's just an absolute animal. Really, really insane athletic profile as well, and I know Brad values that in most of his premium positions. So I think that would go really, really well with what they're trying to do. Can block in a multitude of schemes, whether that's counter, power, zone. Very good in that regard, and kind of a natural pass setter too.
Are there any tight ends, Brett, that should really even be considered past like Kyle Pitts?
I mean,
it seems like there's such a precipitous fall.
I'm a huge fan of Freiermuth, but he's going to go high enough where it just doesn't matter. Like Lions won't be in on him at all, I would presume. And he's a little redundant to Hawkinson too, in a lot of ways. So
it makes a lot of sense.
There's some maybe a later round guy. Again, I don't even know. I mean, Tommy Tremble is who I'm going with, Notre Dame. I don't know if you guys know about this guy, but absolute freak athlete, George Kittle level athlete, just absolute monster, but like no production in college. Played at Notre Dame. And they have a long history of producing really good tight ends, so there could be some intrigue there. I think with his athletic profile, you could see an NFL team get silly with him and make him a day 2 pick. I don't really know, but I'm not willing to spend that high of a pick on any tight end other than Kyle Pitts, just because Hawkinson is so good. There's just really no reason for it. And most of those guys are true tight ends, where Pitts is not. He's a combo player. He's a mismatch nightmare. I don't really see another one of those in this draft class.
Let's talk a little bit more on the offensive line. There's a bunch of guys that I feel there's concern that they might be guards at the next level. And again, the Lions have a little bit of flexibility there if they want Vaitai to kick out and be tackle. So just kind of your thoughts on guys like Alex Leatherwood, Jalen Mayfield, Dylan Radins.
Yeah, Mayfield, it's really interesting with him. I felt like when I watched his tape, I thought he looked like a very plus athlete. He didn't test very well. He's got some arm length issues too, I believe. So I could see him playing right tackle or guard at the NFL level. I would guess that the NFL team is going to try to play him at guard, just knowing how stubborn they are with measurables.
Yeah.
Another one. Who did you ask about? Did you ask about Radins?
Yep. At North Dakota State.
Yeah, Radens. Yeah. Yeah, he's an older guy, redshirt senior. I think he's going to be 24 as a rookie. That always, I'm a little concerned. His tape is really good though, but just he's an older man playing against small school, competition.
Right.
Some interesting things there. The technique looks like it checks out though, but yeah, he's another guy I think with his frame I could easily see him playing guard at the next level. In fact, I think like most of your high level O-line analysts on Twitter think that as well. Like Brandon Thorne's kind of my go-to. If I'm looking to confirm my biases, I go to see what he's written.
Yeah.
And I think he's got Radens playing inside. Another guy you asked about, Leatherwood. I think Leatherwood can play tackle.
Okay.
He's really good. Yeah, I think he's one of the more underrated guys in this class, actually.
Sorry, Ryan, you got one quick one before we kind of wrap things up here?
I was just going to say by design and purposefully done. We didn't talk about any running backs when we talked about day one, but the Lions added Jamal Williams in the offseason. It seems like their running back stable is pretty much set with Swift and Williams and Kerryon Johnson. There is an opportunity for an RB4 to slip in there somewhere for a depth piece. Day 3, I'm assuming. Any guys that kind of stick out to you in our mock draft Thursdays? Chuba Hubbard is a popular name just because of how prolific he was in a season ago. But any guys really pop off to you on day 3 that the Lions might scoop up?
Yeah, and again, it is hard to I don't have a great feel for where these running backs are going to go. I think the NFL is kind of slowly catching on to the analytical approach of we're not going to draft running back super high anymore. So there's the big 3, of course. You've got Najee, Travis Etienne, and Javonte Williams. I think we're tabling all 3 of those guys, right? We're not looking at any of those. Yeah. So beyond that, I mean, Trey Sermon's a guy I think gives you some 3-down potential, brings a unique skill set, really tough runner, kind of like your quintessential RB2 on a roster. He could develop into that for, Jamal's only on a 2-year contract. Other guys, Kenneth Gainwell. I don't know. See, I don't have a good feel where he's going to go. I could see him going round 3 somewhere if someone really wants a pass game specialist.
It's kind of like the AJ Dillon effect, right? Like everybody was like, "Hey, AJ Dillon's going to be a 4th, 5th round pick," and then all of a sudden,
exactly.
Day 2, Packers, cool. All right, sweet.
Yeah, it's really hard. And similar to the receiver class, you have a bunch of guys in this class that are just pass game specialists. It's like Michael Carter, Jamar Jefferson, Kenneth Gainwell, Khalil Herbert, Kylan Hill. These are more pass game specialist type guys. So while you might not really find a great true bell cow running back, especially for the people listening that are fantasy driven, there's a lot of good pass catchers you get probably on day 3. One just to throw out there that I know all of you are familiar with because he played for Michigan is Chris Evans.
Yeah.
And he's an athletic juggernaut. He was actually very productive when he played it. Just kind of, I don't know did he miss a full year or something, right?
Something like that,
miss part of a year. And so his draft profile is all wonky because of that. But I think, and they had the freshman, 2 years ago that Harbaugh tried to give 900 touches to, and it kind of killed Evans' draft stock probably. But I think Evans is a good player, and he kind of does everything. He's a really strong runner, phenomenal moveset, pass catcher. He's one of those guys where it's like, I think he'll be there on day 3, and I'd probably be okay with that. But I could see an NFL team getting silly with him as well because of the way he tested. Ultimately, though, I don't think the Lions should be looking at a running back in the draft.
Amen to that.
Not with the amount of picks they had.
Yeah. Right. All right. Before we close things up, I just want you to give me the ideal combo. And let's say the Lions are only drafting offense, since we're only talking offense this podcast. The ideal pick 1, pick 2 combo for the Lions at 7 and 41.
Okay. In an only offense, I will say, oof. Let's go.
It's April 14th, so you're not tied to it, Brett.
All right. For now, we're gonna go Kyle Pitts at 7 and Diami Brown at 41.
Wow, 2 offensive weapons.
I did that just for Ryan. No, I'm kidding. No, seriously, just I'm serious when I say I really want to give Goff a chance to win the job. So I think that's the best way to do it. Their offensive line's pretty good already. They don't have to draft a tackle early. I think we have some maybe concerns on that right side, but
Sure.
the left side is so good that it's like I'm not sure they have to do much on the offensive line for them to be good. So, yep. So I'd go pass catcher, Pitts and Diami Brown.
Interesting. Kind of love it. Before we let you go, Brett, I want to give you an opportunity for those that maybe know you from PFF but don't know what you're doing now. Tell us about FTN Network.
Yeah, so FTN Network, we're fantasy focused, prop bets, daily fantasy focused. What we're doing is awesome. We've got a bunch of analysts that we provide picks and plays and fantasy content that's just really, really good. I mean, we create winners. One of our top guys has won the Millie Maker 3 times in DFS, which is insane. So that's the main thing we're doing. What I'm doing at FTN is I'm creating a data department. We've purchased another small data company. I've kind of taken the reins on that, along with Jeff Ratcliffe, and we are creating another data juggernaut in the space. There's a few competitors out there. Obviously, my former employer, there's SIS and some other companies, but we've got the guys in place. I've built a really good team already, and we'll be hiring again after the draft. But we're going for it, man. We've got an amazing data set, and we sell it to everybody, whether it's teams, business to business, or the consumer who high-end fantasy player, high-end better. We're selling data packages to everybody.
That sounds awesome. That sounds cutting edge, really fun stuff. And for your data heads, something you can't miss. So make sure you're following Brett on Twitter to keep up with all that stuff at BG Whitefield. And then obviously go to FTN Network for all the most cutting edge stuff over there. Brett, so good to see you. Thank you for joining us. I hope it won't be as long next time before we see you. And then hopefully we can hang out in person too. That'd be nice.
Yeah, we only live a few miles apart.
Right.
So
it's funny because
it's been a crazy year.
You were talking about Etienne, and I think the last time we hung out was the national championship last year when you were talking about Etienne as one of your favorite guys.
No way. Was it that long ago?
It might have been, honestly.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, because COVID hit like a month and a half or 2 months after that.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, we, hopefully when things feel back to normal, we got to get together. Absolutely.
But thank you all for listening. We will be back with we'll be doing another a locker room on Saturday mornings. If you haven't joined that yet, download the locker room app. Join us at 10:30 a.m. We answer all your live questions, and we'll have the big podcast where we talk about the second and third and fourth and fifth rounds. And then next week for First Bite, we'll be talking defense. So make sure you're followed on all of the Pride of Detroit podcasts on YouTube, on Twitch. Until next time, y'all, it's chaos. Be kind. Okay, we're still live on YouTube and Twitch, Brett, but the podcast is over, so if you have something nasty to say, still wait. But you are also free to go because I know you got a family, and I think at one point I heard some children screaming, which I don't. It could have come from it could have come from either of you, so I'm not entirely sure.
Wait, what?
Happened. Surprise! So Brett, I got engaged, and I have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old in my house. So
well, that's awesome, dude. Congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you. So I get your lifestyle now. I get your lifestyle.
Well, sorry if there was noise. I didn't even hear it.
No.
My kids are supposed to be in bed in theory, so.
I mean, we get it all here. We get dog noises. I had to leave in the middle of my podcast last week because my dog was eating brownies, and then when I came back, I knocked over the green screen. It was chaos. Like our audience is used to that.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Oh, hey, I'm getting some congratulations. Yeah, thanks everybody on Twitch. I got engaged. I'm doing big boy shit.
That's awesome.
And thank you to a bunch of you who subscribed on YouTube, including Ryan. I don't know if that was a new one or an old one, or if it was you. I guess it was you.
I don't know.
Ryan, Kirsten, J.E. Cards, and Christopher Lalone. Thank you for the follows on the subscriptions on YouTube, I should say. And I don't know if I said it to Paper City Gamer. I said thank you for the bits, but thank you for the follow now as well. Brett, what do you think of the stash? Asked C.J. Craig.
Oh, it's awesome.
You can be honest.
Killer.
Jamal Williams just crushed me for it for an hour.
Did
he? He really did.
He did.
Here's what I say. I think like in the circle of boys, I think it's awesome. Like most of your boys are gonna be like, "Yo, that's legit." But I mean, if you're seeking out relationships, and you know what I mean,
yeah, yep.
I feel like
I'm
might
wearing
be a
ankle
problem,
weights
but-
essentially.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I first got married to my wife, she hated any kind of mustache. It's really grown on her now, and now she likes it when it's like beard mustache, all bushy. But my kids like it trim, so I've been keeping it trim. But so I think once you secure, then the mustache can become part of the game.
Yeah.
But for now, you might want to scale it back a little until you secure, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Well-
so what he's saying is, if it gets dyed blue,
Which
this is where it gets even crazier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes, don't do that.
There's a stipulation next podcast. If we get 500 subscriptions in one podcast on Twitch, I'll dye it blue for the draft. But I am also immediately shaving it right after draft weekend.
Well, that's fair. I think that needs to happen.
Well, it'll be up to Twitch chat. We got 100 subs last week. We're up to 500 for yeah. I don't even know what that's going to be like. I don't even want to think about it.
Brett, we have one more offensive line question if you're up for answering it.
We did spend a lot of time there. My bad.
Yeah, no, we directed the conversation. You answered all the questions, man. Liam Eichenberg, how do you feel about my guy from Notre Dame here?
Yeah, I like him. I mean, he's good. He's just a solid prospect. He doesn't have a ton. I mean, pass sets can get a little wonky sometimes. I think he's good in the run game.
Day two guy
on that long line of. Yeah, I think he's a day two guy. Long line of Notre Dame offensive linemen that are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
If someone took him at the back end of the first round, it really wouldn't even surprise me. But there's guys I prefer over him for sure. But if the Lions came away with a guy like that, I'd be fine with it.
There you have it.
He's older. He's older too, right? Yeah, he's 24.
He was a graduate. Yeah, so
yeah.
All right, I think we're gonna end it there. We've done 2 live streams today, and so I'm exhausted. We'll have this one. If you missed anything, I would suggest maybe just going back on the YouTube or Twitch and watching it. We're gonna delay this one on the stream a little bit because we're gonna push out the Jamal Williams podcast for tomorrow, and then I think this one's gonna get pushed on Saturday, and then we'll have the locker room on Sunday. So a lot of content for you guys to catch up on if you missed anything, but just stick around here, YouTube, Twitch. That's where you can find almost all that stuff except for the locker room stuff. But thank you all for listening, for watching. We can raid someone else here on Twitch if we'd like, if there's anyone out there that you guys know that you like. Maybe a Lions fan. You know what? We're going to go with our good Valorant friend, our new Valorant friend, who may or may not be responsible for some future emotes on this channel. We're going to go see Cortilli, our good friend over there. Go say hi to her. She's very, very high energy, friendly. Make sure you behave, or I'm going to come get you. But until then, guys, appreciate all the support. Appreciate all the subs, the follows, all that sort of stuff. We will see you guys on Saturday on Locker Room. And then if not, then I completely forgot. We got Mock Draft Thursdays tomorrow. Crap. We'll see that. I guess we'll see you tomorrow then. Bye, everybody. And